Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh, and we've got Reid waiting for us in the Escape Pod to chat all about Star Wars Squadrons. Reid's been on the show before to talk about multiple things. He's primarily been our guy to chat video games with, so he's back, and this game came out a while ago, October 1st, 2020, so a couple months ago. But at this point, you know, this is a spoiler discussion, by the way. It's been a couple months, and we figured a lot of you guys have had the chance to play it. And if not, then this is a good inside look at what this game is about, what it's like, what kind of things are in the story, and much more. So stay tuned.
Another happy landing.
All right, cool. That's the main theme that we got right there from Star Wars Squadrons. So in the escape pod with me, I've got Reid. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back, man.
Always good to have you back, buddy. When was the last time you were on here, actually?
Ooh. It was after the Disney like update or whatever, right? Because we were talking about it.
Oh yeah.
I knew nothing about, but I was still like you guys were telling me about it, and I was getting like hyped. I was like, oh, what? They're doing this thing? Like, oh, that's so cool.
Oh yeah. That was. I guess it was for one of the Mandalorian after shows. I guess. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
I think that's what that was about. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So it hasn't been too long, but
not crazy long.
You know, I guess, you know, when people aren't seeing each other in person these days, it's kind of hard to keep track of time. All these online events and stuff kind of blur together.
Yeah, dude, we're all on COVID time. It's just like
yeah, exactly. I know, right? I mean, it's made it more apparent to me though, like recently, that a thing like this can actually. I don't know. It's been nice, I guess, for multiple reasons. I mean, for a lot of people, it's kind of been a source of entertainment for like staying indoors and stuff. But then for other people, it's been just something to do while they're, you know, at their desk job and stuff like that. And you know, it's nice to feel like I'm like contributing to that kind of entertainment industry in a way. Yeah. So that's good. So yeah, I hope you feel the same. Being
totally.
Being a consistent guest on the show, which is awesome. But yeah, I don't know if you knew, but actually maybe you do know this, but I'm just gonna say it anyway because anyone tuning into the show for the first time probably didn't catch this bit of news. So if you are tuning into the first time, welcome to Star Wars Escape Pod. It's a Star Wars podcast delivering you just friendly Star Wars chat and discussion from across the galaxy. And we just hit FeedSpot's top 30 Star Wars podcasts on the internet, the list. So that's, you know, pretty cool. I felt pretty good about that. I was like, you know what? Milestone achieved. if life was a video game, you know, one up, you know. We also started our Rebels Talk series. It's a new after show, kind of following where we left off with Diego in Clone Wars Talk, which lasted 40 episodes of this show. And it's basically stylized the exact same way. We've been going through Star Wars Rebels, just watching a couple episodes at a time, and then chatting about it in the kind of a breakdown fashion, just talking about the characters and the story arcs and all that. And the first episode actually dropped this week on Monday. So, well, as of this recording, which is probably just going to drop next week. So so that's cool as well. We also have some episodes coming up explaining, kind of filling people in on histories of characters like Darth Maul, and then I believe at some point we'll be sitting down to do a reading through of an 80s article from a 1980s magazine, which was a guy speculating on what the Clone Wars was, because back then nobody knew what it was. So I thought that was a fantastic article, and a friend of mine gave me this magazine, and I thought it was just fascinating. So
that's pretty cool, man.
So so that out of the way, Star Wars Squadrons, it's been out for a while now. You finished the game way before I did.
Oh yeah, I finished it a little while ago, so hopefully my memory isn't too fuzzy. I think I'll hopefully remember enough to have an interesting discussion about the game.
Yeah, that's fair. I just finished it this past week, so I mean, in anticipation for finally getting around to doing this thing, because it's been on the back burner for a while and time slipped by. Work gets busy, and I'm like, oh geez, it came out like last year and in the fall technically. So it's like, okay, I got to finish this campaign. Yeah. But how did you, just in general, like what do you think of the story? Because of course you played through the Battlefront 2 campaign. You also did Fallen Order, right? Yeah, you played through Fallen Order. So you played through all the newer big titled canon. Yeah. So how did this game kind of stack up to that?
I think it was a lot better than I thought it would be. Like especially for the game's price point. Like I wasn't expecting a campaign. I mean, it wasn't like the longest campaign that I've ever played. Like I don't remember exactly off the top of my head like how many missions there were or whatever, but I think it's more than 12 or 14 per like faction basically, because there's the Rebel or technically New Republic faction, and then there's the Imperials basically. And so it was it definitely went on like longer. Like when I was first playing through it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna like burn through this super fast, and then I'm gonna be doing like multiplayer, blah blah blah. And it definitely took me like longer than I expected. Not that it was like, super like long and drawn out and like challenging or anything like that, but it was a good it was a good solid story, and I'm really glad they did that, because I definitely would have been really like disappointed, I think, if it was just because especially for a Star Wars game, like that's what it's about, right? It's not just a bunch of ships in space, because we got like hundreds of games like that, but it's Star Wars, right? So I'm glad not only did we have all the cool like stuff, like all the ships that we're familiar with and that kind of thing, but it had a pretty solid story. I was pretty happy with the story. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, no, actually, I mean, I agree with all of that. I mean, I think there's no way to put it better than exactly what you said. I mean, there's many flight simulator games out there, and so many very similar, in a similar fashion, and even if it was just a game where it's like you could fly a Star Wars ship, it's like there'd be something missing. But what makes it a really good Star Wars game is the story. Like, and that's what makes any Star Wars story great. Is it's unique in a sense, and it's got all the what makes Star Wars iconic about it. I mean, all that's kind of wrapped up into this 14 mission campaign. It's 14 missions, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think it is 14 per faction.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I guess, kind of like what you said, the two factions that you can play as, which it kind of goes back and forth between both as you progress through the story. It goes between the Empire and the Rebellion, and then at some point it eventually transitions into the New Republic, which is very shortly after the destruction of the second Death Star above Endor. So in a way, this game kind of overlaps with the original trilogy films, and then kind of proceeds to go into that just after Episode 6 era, in which we actually have a lot of content in that section right there. Because and I'm counting the books and comics and everything else, but it's got something in common with Battlefront 2 in the sense that the campaign takes place roughly around the same time period. which I thought was really interesting because I mean, out of the whole span of the story that they could have done it in, they chose that one area, and to me, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I think partially it's because they definitely wanted to do a game that used the Rebellion and the Empire, but then they didn't want to do a game that's just completely based in the original trilogy. I think they wanted to really focus in on this new era that they're building out of the New Republic, which we're seeing in the likes of The Mandalorian and the other live action shows that they're going to be putting out. It actually takes place in this official titled era called the Rise of the New Republic or something like that. They've given it a label, or the era of the New Republic or something. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that they decided to do that. And you know, it has a lot of things in common with I guess the material that surrounds that area. But I mean, how many ships are there that we can play as in the campaign? It's like 8 of them, right? 4 on each side.
So I think there's I think there's, because in a squadron there's like 5.
Yeah, that's the multiplayer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. So I think
the multiplayer I think is 5.
There's their fighter, there's the interceptor, there's the bomber, and then there's the support ship. And then they've added in the multiplayer they've added a new class of ship, which is I don't think
the TIE Defender. The TIE Defender. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that's in the main story now. And I think it's for the Rebels, or the New Republic. Is it the B-wing? I think.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the 5th ship. So the standard ships for Rebels / New Republic is X-wing, A-wing, Y-wing, and U-wing from the one that's iconically known from Rogue One.
Yep. Yeah.
And then the B-wing is kind of that 5th additional ship that they added for multiplayer. And so
I think we see that one in Return of the Jedi for the first time, right?
Yeah. The B-wing shows up in Return of the Jedi, and actually they had a whole arc about it in Star Wars Rebels as to like the creation of that ship and a little more on like what it can do, because in that movie you see them flying around, but you don't really see the details on that ship too much. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a cool ship, man. Like I've always loved the B-wing,
because it's like, a weird one. It pivots on like an axis or something like that, doesn't it? Like
it, like the ship body pivots. It uses the cockpit as like a center.
Yes, like a
gyro center. Yeah, like a gyroscopic center point, and then the rest of the ship kind of turns around that or something. It's a really odd but cool, unique design. Yeah. And I believe the designer was Mon Cala. I think he was a Mon Calamari.
That's pretty cool,
dude. Yeah. So that's in the Star Wars Rebels show. But speaking of Star Wars Rebels, there's a character that shows up in this game, and it's General Hera Syndulla, and she's the green Twi'lek that shows up for the very final. She's in the final mission briefing room, but she's also on the holograms here and there throughout the rest of the game, and makes some brief appearances and stuff. And she's voiced by the same actress and all that stuff. And she's like one of the main characters of Star Wars Rebels. So it was really cool to see her kind of pop up in a live action-ish look. Yeah. Because I'm so used to seeing her in like the Star Wars Rebels fashion. Yeah. And it was awesome to see her in like this CGI'd kind of, lifelike appearance. So that was kind of a nice nod to the show, and
that's pretty cool. I didn't know that, but like I think that's one of the things that they did well with this game, is that like there's not like it's not like a super like big like intrusive entry into like Star Wars canon and stuff like that, and so they can like add and take away things as they like, because like you were saying, like this is a very like untouched almost area, other than like like Star Wars Battlefront 2 or like Mandalorian. So we're only like just starting to understand like the I guess the new canon for this era of Star Wars and stuff. So it's kind of cool that they're like actually making an effort to get characters into the game and stuff.
Yeah, totally. And and then I guess to build on top of that as well is just in this new canon. I mean, for the past couple of years, I guess since 2015, we've had which was the release of the first canon book. Since then, has just been all canon content that had been released, aside from the game, which is the Old Republic, which is still like from years ago. Everything else that Disney's kind of put out under the Star Wars license has sort of generally been known as to be canon material. The first ever canon book, I remember, it was called A New Dawn. And this novel, ironically enough, featured Hera as a main character, as well as Kanan Jarrus, who is kind of the Jedi Knight of Star Wars Rebels. And it was a prequel novel to the Star Wars Rebels show, which was going to be premiering later that year, kind of thing. And I remember it was not the best book I read. I remember it being okay with it. But one of the characters they also introduced in that book was a character known as Admiral Ray Sloan. And this character has now also popped up in various novels, comics, and short stories, and as well as the Battlefront 2 game, and now Star Wars Squadrons. Like she showed up in this game as well. And the actor that plays her she voices her is Dion Audain, I think. I don't know. I might be botching her name there, but yeah, she has kind of been brought to life now at this point through this voice actress. And it's very cool to think that maybe she might show up in some of these live action shows going forward. But again, it was just one of those little things that's like, yeah, this is a Star Wars story. Like, this is like the next chapter. If you were to go through beginning to end, like, this is a chapter you just didn't, you just don't want to miss it. Especially if you love like fighter pilots and, the X-Wings and all that stuff. Like, it's a story that you have to play through, but it's also a story that you get to really, digest and get into. And in a way, you also get to be immersed in it if you have a VR headset, because this game is VR compatible, which is is awesome. It's a cross-platform game, whether you're on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and if you have a VR headset with PC, you can toss that on and be inside the cockpit as you fly around. It's extremely nauseating because you don't feel the G's at all. Like, you're sitting in a desk chair, right? And you're flying all the way around. You expect to kind of be pushed back and forth in your seat a little bit, and it's nothing, right? So every time I play with you, I always just do it, in my normal desk chair, because I'm like, I can't stand more than like 20 to 30 minutes of this.
Oh yeah,
but
I believe it.
It's cool though. It's a cool feature, and for people who can actually stand longer than 30 minutes in the chair like that without feeling sick, then that's awesome for you. So
yeah, I haven't tried the game yet in VR. I mean, you could definitely tell it's like meant to be like played with VR and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been like, I mean, the gameplay is great. It's super fun. Like this, yeah, the story is pretty great too. Like, one of the things I appreciate about the story too is that, like, kind of like I sort of mentioned earlier, is that it's not like a big like super intrusive, almost like mainstream Star Wars story. It's about, like, I mean, obviously it covers like critical events and stuff like that in its own way, but it's not like, you're following like a Luke Skywalker around, right? Yeah. Like, it's you're like, they've pretty right away they open up like the story with, like, helping to recover refugees from Alderaan and that kind of thing. And so it's like a really cool, like it's a great like opportunity to like dive it, kind of like the way Rogue One did, like dive into like the nitty gritty, like the actual Star Wars world, instead of just following around like all the top guys and just like skipping over events and stuff like that. That's perfectly well said. Actually, speaking of the story, did you happen to read the short story that precedes the campaign story? It was called The Light You Bring. It was written by Joaba Berry, or Joe Berry or something, and it's set during the game, and that was a short story that was released in October as well, and it was based on a mission that Vanguard Squadron has to do. Did you happen to read that at any point? I don't think I ever did. If it wasn't in the game, I probably didn't see it or read it or whatever.
Okay. I think I vaguely, again, this was like months ago now, so I think I did read it, and I can't remember what it was about. Yeah. But it's worth mentioning, though, that there is a short story on the website that you can look up. So for anyone who's very curious about kind of the events that set this game story in motion, you can look up the Light You Bring short story, and you can get a free digital copy of that on the website. But yeah, so a big part of the story, speaking of the story, it really evolves around the New Republic building their own version of a big super weapon-sized ship.
Yes.
Called Project Starhawk, and Starhawk is actually something that was first introduced in the Aftermath trilogy books, which are 3 books that kind of take place from Return of the Jedi up until a year later at the Battle of Jakku, where the Empire kind of comes to an end. And this game is generally set between those 2 events. So interestingly enough, I guess during the first quarter of that year, because as we know from the end of the game, the Project Starhawk, the first and only one that they have, gets blown up. Yep. So,
or I think you personally blow it up too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and later down the road at the Battle of Jakku, they do have them present at the Battle of Jakku. I think they have 3 of them actually. And you can also you can also, I didn't know this, but the FFG, Fantasy Flight Games, the board games company,
maybe.
So they make the Star Wars Legion miniatures game. They make the role playing game. They make the new card. They're the exclusive Star Wars license holder for all things board games these days. Yeah. And have been for a couple of years now. But they make a miniatures game called Armada. And they make another one called X-Wing. But the Armada game really features kind of a scale that's sort of large scale, but smaller. So your TIE fighters and everything are these tiny little things in the clusters. Yeah. And the big capital ships are kind of your average miniature size. And they actually make a Starhawk miniature and the design is exactly the same. And this thing, sick. I think, came out a while ago. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, huh. That's a nice nod to the design that kind of went into the game as well.
Yeah, and, definitely, dude.
All that stuff. So something I didn't know when I was kind of doing my research on some of the other things to bring up during this conversation. But pretty cool stuff. Mm-hmm. So Starhawk is like, the New Republic's answer to fighting Star Destroyers, because they really, as seen from multiple different battles that happen through the films, they really their ships don't stand up against the Star Destroyers too well. I mean, Star Destroyers are generally known to be the ships you run away from.
Yeah, they are the Star Destroyers are still the alpha dog in the galaxy. That's for sure. Because I like the Battle of Jakku hasn't happened yet, and so the Imperials, like, they might have lost, like, the Death Star 2, and the Emperor might be dead, and people all over the galaxy might be rebelling, but the Empire's not gone. They still got a lot of ships, and so you're pretty much, as Vanguard Squadron, you're pretty much running away from the Star Destroyer that I can't remember the name of it. What is it called? They have a name for it in the game. I'm trying to look. I don't see it off the top of my head.
I'm blanking on it too.
But yeah, you're running from the admiral or whoever is in charge, and like Titan Squadron, basically, which is like your nemesis squadron that you play as and that kind of thing. But it's kind of cool because like the New Republic are like, okay, now that we're like starting to finally like be able to fight the Imperials conventionally and not just like hit and run type of thing, we need to be able to match them like toe to toe, and so that's what basically Project Starhawk is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's built out of reused and recycled, broken down Star Destroyers. Yeah. So, it's kind of a cool concept of like the rebellion kind of building this new fleet of super-sized ships off of the Empire's garbage.
It's smart too, because instead of trying to like build something from scratch, which like would take the rebels who don't kind of have the same sort of industrial complex and base that the Empire does, with building something like that from scratch could take them, like so long that they could have lost the war by then.
Right.
But so they've figured out how to like combine all those components. So there's some cool design elements where you're kind of like, oh yeah, I see how they like implemented like, you know, this part of a Star Destroyer into it and stuff like that, and it's still its own kind of ship. And I think one of like the focal points of the ship, isn't it a like colossal tractor beam? Like that's it's kind of a cool contrast too, because like with the Empire, when they build a super weapon, it's to blow things up. So they're just like, hey, it must explode bigger, like must big boom hard. And the Rebels are like, I guess the New Republic are the polar opposite of that. So they're like, let's go non-lethal, sort of.
It definitely seems like more of a safe, defensive, non-destructive way of taking an enemy down. It's like, oh, let's just use a tractor beam and use it as like a way to force Star Destroyers into like a moon or whatever, or into each other. Who knows, right? But I kind of made the mental comparison just now of like the Sith compared to the Jedi, whereas like the Sith have like their destructive Sith lightning that kind of, you know, inflicts, you know, pain and suffering and all that. Yeah. And then the Jedi have like, they primarily just use the Force, which is, you know, like, and it's like, oh, it's like a beam, electric beam, and just like a Force thing of
Force
some
energy
kind, right?
of some kind,
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, it's funny how that parallel kind of works its way into the Republic fighting the Empire in warfare and in the ships and all that stuff. So I thought that was cool too. But I mean, you know, overall, I think like, the campaign is definitely, it's a story worth getting into, right? Like,
like I think for me too, like because the game retails for like $40 or something like that. I think
it's cheaper than most AAA games are rated these days, or priced these days, which is more like 80. But yeah, it's cheaper than most of the new games that have come out. Yeah,
and so like I would say like that's a pretty like reasonable price, for like a new game, especially like a Star Wars game. And then it's got like a pretty decently long story. Because I mean, I've bought like big AAA games or whatever where their stories where they're, you know, they retail for like $60, $70, $80, and their story is like maybe pushing it 15 hours. Like, you know, if you go around and like get all the collectibles and stuff like that, like it's a linear story like 15 hours or something, which is just like a buzzkill, right? And so it's this
is about, would you say it's about the same but cheaper?
I think it's pretty similar but cheaper. I'll just see what my logged hours are on Steam actually, because it should.
I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm just launching up Steam.
Star Wars Squadrons. You'll probably have
my
more
play time is 13.8 hours. So
so I have like 15 and a half basically, and that's with playing some of the multiplayer and stuff like that. And I think I'm like ranked 12 in the multiplayer.
Okay, and I'm ranked 4.5 in the multiplayer, so I didn't play that much.
Oh, only so like close to rank 5,
4 rounds. Yeah, so close to rank 5. Yeah, so actually, that's one thing we should talk about is the multiplayer modes now. Once you get with the multiplayer modes, you're kind of locked into just playing dogfights until you reach a pilot rank of level 5, and then you unlock all the other modes, which I can't talk about any of them because I'm still ranked 4.5. But
so talking about how they designed like that like system or whatever you want to call it. So I actually don't mind what they did, because basically like they're taking and it kind of ties into the campaign too and stuff like that. And I'll explain why. But like I think what they did is kind of smart, because it's really kind of user-friendly way, because part of the reality with like a lot of multiplayer games that you play is that there's going to be a huge learning curve, and like especially if it's like a highly skilled or like meta-based game, like it's really hard to like casually learn how to do that. And so throughout the story, which is a design thing that I actually really, really liked, they basically throughout the story at one point or another, they'll have taught you how to use every single ship. and like shown you like the potential of each of those individual ships and stuff like that. And like some missions are specifically tailored for the different ship classes and stuff like that, obviously with the exception of the B-wing and then the new Imperial equivalent that they added and stuff like that to the multiplayer. But that's like a really great way to like help you learn like how to use those ships, like before getting into the multiplayer and having to learn all of that by yourself from scratch. And so they push that even further when you do start the multiplayer, where like they give you the option to do like a practice or tutorial thing or whatever, like to practice before you even start the game. And then they level lock you. So until you pass rank 5, you can only do one game mode, which is dogfighting. So it's just pure ship to ship combat and stuff like that. And so it's kind of making, because the main like feature of the game or the game's multiplayer at least is their fleet battles. Excuse me. So it's like, you know, like there's the Imperial capital ship and then there's your capital ship, and then throughout the battle there'll be like different like escort class vessels and different like structures and stuff for you to destroy, sort of, or there's stuff for you to blow up. But basically, it's the dogfight mode is like on a smaller, typically more open area, and it's just pure ship to ship. And then the fleet battles are really cool because you know it's like a full scale battle where it's like there's like going to be the Star Destroyer, which you actually deploy from, and you can like fly back into its hangar and stuff like that, and it'll actually at various points like participate in the battle, because it's almost the way they designed it is like a tug of war almost. So like you have to, I think first phase you have to like kill off like a certain number of the enemy team, and then like you'll move on to the next phase line, which is like you destroying like some of the escorts or something like that, and then like final phase is attacking the actual enemy ship. And so at any of those phases you can get pushed back from that phase to the previous phase. So it isn't just like
interesting.
So you can, I think you can completely destroy like the escorts and stuff like that. So it'll like, so if it's like if the game's going back and forth a lot, it kind of speeds up the way the game ends, so that you aren't like it's not getting drawn out like over a really long time. It's basically like eliminating like a couple of the phase lines so that you can more quickly like cause damage to each other's capital ships and kind of speed up the end of the game type of thing. But it's really fun. Like there's a couple different, like all the ship classes are like very well suited to their different roles and stuff like that. And they do a pretty good job of where like you like giving you points for playing the objective and stuff like that. Because I mean, like, you know, you can really focus on kills if you want, but then like obviously that the whole objective of the fleet battle is to destroy the enemy capital ship and their like its escorts and stuff like that. And so you can, I've had guys I think get more points than me just because they've just caused like so much damage to enemy like systems and ships and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. It's a really fun game mode. Like it's too bad we hadn't gotten the chance to play it yet because we were just shy when my game crashed or whatever. But
that's cool actually. And I mean, this is I mean, a lot of people still have some concerns about EA's track record making Star Wars games, and of course recent news being that they've actually lost exclusivity is kind of refreshing, because it means that we'll get we'll get more games like all coming out at once, but it also means we'll get some diversity in which companies making these things. So this is really truly the last kind of exclusive Star Wars game that EA is going to throw out there. And it's actually made by one of their subsidiary studios called Motive. And Motive actually, I believe, were the subsidiary EA company that built the Starfighter engine / the dynamics and stuff for Battlefront 2.
Okay.
So, you know, so if anyone out there likes the Battlefront 2 Starfighter mode, you know, it's worth noting that this game is kind of built off of that groundwork a lot. and that's
Yeah, it's definitely more like they do a great job of bringing like a whole nother layer of complexity and stuff like that. Because we didn't. I
Yeah.
don't think either of us really played the Starfighter mode like that much.
not
In
really.
Battlefront.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's cool. I think in the first Battlefront game that EA did, I played the Starfighter mode a little bit more in that one. But yeah, in this one, there's no like big like hero ships or whatever to come and doomsday everybody else. I mean,
Yeah, you don't get Slave One whipping around just destroying everybody.
Yeah, they do. One of the things they do that's really really cool is so they have like so right at the like when you level up and earn points and stuff like that in the game, there's no ships for you to unlock. All the ships are already unlocked, and every like I think like every single module and everything like that is like fully accessible like from the start of the game.
Yeah, because you can change out like your like the hull and like your weapon systems and all that. You can customize your ships on the outside pretty well.
Yeah, so there's tons of different and it's cool because you can like get different loadouts for different ships and you can change them whenever you want pretty much. And so you can like for example, like you can have a really like I do, like I have for the Y-wing, I have a really tanky build for the Y-wing, and like for like that makes it a little better suited to ship combat. And then like I have a build for like a bomber Y-wing basically, which is better for like, you know, playing the objective and that kind of thing. And then like for like the TIE fighter or X-wing, like I'll have like a primary like ship to ship type build, but then because they're a little bit more of a versatile ship in that game, like you can have like harder hitting like anti like capital ship weapons and stuff like that. Like you can get like proton torpedoes and stuff like that with the X-wing and the TIE fighter, and you can launch those, or I think you get them with the TIE fighter, but those like are a huge heavy like damage dealing weapon to ships and subsystems and stuff like that. So it's really cool the amount of customization that you can do. And then they take it even after that to the next level where like they do a great job, like first of all, of like designing the cockpit to be your HUD instead of having to have like a whole bunch of, you know, different like 2D HUD elements or whatever like floating around on your screen. It's all like ship subsystems, and each ship is like kind of different. I mean, the Imperial ships kind of have their own consistent theme, and then the New Republic ships have their own consistent theme, right? But they did a fantastic job of like, you know, when you like think about like
in the
cockpit
like
of like an X-wing, they did a fantastic job of actually like making those different things that you see useful. So like the for example, like the scope of your ship, it's like it follows like where you're pointed, and so like it obviously like flying around in space. Where you're like rolling around and going up and down all over the place can get really disorientating. So that using your scope where it like spots your allies and enemies, and like that's how you kind of it like kind of ties into your target like locks and stuff like that. That's a great way to like orientate yourself towards enemies more efficiently if you're having a hard time like visually spotting them yourself. And then they have like all the different subsystems for the ships itself, which is super cool because like the rebel ships all have shields by default, whereas the Imperial ones don't, but then they typically have more like health than the rebel ships. And then the Imperial ships are usually more maneuverable than the rebel ships, but then the rebel ships have like like their own specializations and abilities, and so it's really cool too because like since the rebels get shields, you can actually choose like where those shields are. So like if you're doing like an early open game attack on the enemy fighters and stuff, you can be like all shields to the all power to the forward shield generator, right? Or you can be like, oh, there's an enemy behind me, all power to the rear shield generator, or like, oh, like I'm out of battle, let's rebalance the shields so like I get full 360 degrees of shields and stuff like that. And then the Imperials, though, they don't get shields unless you get like a specific module that only lasts for a certain amount of time. So what they gave the Imperials was really cool, where they can choose to overload subsystems. So not only can you like min max between the different ship subsystems. So you can be like, oh, I want most of my power to go to, weapons, or most of my power to go to engines and stuff like that. You can fully drain power from the rest of your ship systems into one system. So like I've had like tons of fun in like a TIE interceptor where like I'll just constantly do like hit and run against enemy fighters, because I'll be able to fly into battle, take out an enemy, and then fully overload like my engines and just like rocket out of there, because you can I think it'll give you your full like boost or whatever, and then you can like rip out of there.
You can do this all on the fly, so it gets to the point where you're always like, I mean, you can choose to keep busy with that controller, just always clicking different buttons, changing your subsystems, rerouting power and stuff like that. It's really cool, like the way that they've done that.
I mean, you can get by like just like flying around and trying to shoot at people and stuff like that, but like kind of once you like learn to use those different subsystems, it's a whole nother layer of complexity and like micromanagement in the game and stuff like that, because you can do like some really cool stuff. So it's it's a lot of fun, like learning to do that.
And and like the way that they've designed the cockpit, like what you're saying before, I've noticed there is a way that you can, because you're kind of permanently or temporarily fixated through the center point of the window. But there's a way that you can unlock, like, at least if you're not in VR.
I think you hit one of the bumpers or something on the Xbox controller, and then you can like look around.
You can like look around your cockpit and through those side windows and stuff like that. Of course, if you're playing in VR, you just turn your head, and that's kind of how you do it. But it just kind of it reflected to me. I was like, oh, in VR, like I can look behind me. How do I do that in like the game? Like, is it even possible? And sure enough, it is. It's just a matter of hitting the button. So the game is very well constructed to support any level of playing. Like whether you're on VR or PlayStation or Xbox or whatever, and it's all cross-compatible servers, so you can play with buddies on other consoles and stuff like that, which I think is really cool.
And they like I guess I mentioned this already, but like everything's all like the ships and weapon systems and everything are like pretty much unlocked from the beginning. So there's never going to be someone that has like some like crazy big advantage over you, that where they're like, oh yeah, I like bought this like special like DLC or did use this in-game currency to buy this thing or whatever. Like the only stuff you can buy in game are like little like trinkets and stuff like that, like cosmetic stuff or like for skins for the ship, for your different pilots. Like you can choose to have different races for your pilots and stuff like that, and different uniforms, and then you like I was nerding out on yesterday, I have in all my ships, like my first goal was to get the little rat lizard hologram in all of my ships. And so that's what I have in all my ships, is that little rat lizard there, just giving me, cheering me on, blasting
the little model of it,
blasting away enemies.
Yeah, they've got some cool cosmetic items, and it's very like in-universe stuff. So they make it feel as if these things could have been picked up at a little store somewhere on, some planet or something like that. They've got knickknacks and things like that. Oh, and
one of them is actually for the Imperials that you can get. It's a little those little like things that you can hang from like the mirror in your car or something like that. So like one of the ones you can get for the Imperial fighters is like a thing of Admiral Thrawn's Star Destroyer. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's called the Chimera.
So funny.
Is that it?
Yeah. That's
so
ship.
You can get a little thing of the Chimera or whatever, something like that. I don't remember.
It's hilarious, man.
It's just tons of cool little stuff. Like I think you can get a thing of for like someone frozen in carbonite or something too. Like I don't know if it's Solo that's in the carbonite, but it's somebody. And then there's just tons of just fun little stuff, and it's not really intrusive either. Like it's just kind of like if you're flying around and you have like downtime between when the enemy team respawns or move into an objective, you could kind of be like, oh yeah, like I got all this cool crap in my car.
I think it's to kind of make you feel as if you're part of that story, right? Because I've noticed throughout the whole campaign, they also they don't refer to you as a name of any kind. Like you are always silent first person. You're always first person. You don't have any lines or dialogue. People just talk to you and just kind of feed off of what you might think your reaction would be to their statement. And so you don't have a voice that comes out of your guy that you play as or anything like that. So it really makes you feel that as if like you are the character of this story. And even more so, like, you know, if you are the kind of person that can play in VR the entire time, and, you know, look around like the Rebel, like hangar bay and whatever else is pretty cool. It really does make you feel as if like you are that person that is living out this story. And you played the Vader Immortal trilogy, you know, with me. A year and a half ago, whatever it was.
A long time ago.
And we chatted about those games here on the show as well, a long time ago. But it's the same idea, right? Like in that game, you don't have any lines or anything like that. You are the guy witnessing the story unfold in front of you and role playing as that character. So I really like that style of gameplay because it fits it doesn't fit every game, but it fits this game pretty well. And I think it suits that customizable cockpit a little more because you get to make it feel as if that's your ship, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I love too, is that like all those little like things or whatever, I'm like, yeah, I earned all this stuff. Because like you don't like there's no way for you to like buy up in-game currency or anything like that. And so like I'm only like rank 12 in the game or whatever. Like I've only played multiplayer a little bit, but I'm like, yeah, I've earned that little rat lizard hologram and, you know, whatever other thing. Or I think one of my other favorite things too is like one of the skins that I have for my ships is the gold leader for my Y-Wing. And so it's just cool to see like those different things. And you can get, there's tons of different skins for all the different ships. Like you can get the one Luke Skywalker has on his X-Wing, and it's cool, man. It's a great little fan honoring Star Wars game, kind of like they did a solid job.
Well said. Yeah, it pays homage to Star Wars fans everywhere. And just fits in the universe really well. This game has, after it being a little while now, reviews have kind of leveled out, averaged out, I guess you could say. So on Steam, it's got a 7 out of 10. Metacritic, it's got 79%, and PC Gamer rates at 83%. So, you know, it's all very, I would say, positive reviews.
It's not like it's not a game where they went like and did like, you know, some crazy revolutionary like features and stuff like that. Like you were saying, like they took like the like what they learned basically from like the starfighter modes in Battlefront 2, and they were like, how do we make this like way better and make this its own game and stuff, right? And they did a great job. Like this game has its own like metas and like different ways that you can play the game and stuff like that. And so you can just hop in and have like fun if you want to. Like it has a fleet battle mode that's just versus AI. So if you just want to like casually hop into the game and just fight some like AI or something like that every once in a while, or just do like a skirmish against AI, you can do that. You can set the difficulty level. Just because, you know, if you just want to have a good time playing a Star Wars game, or if you want to get a little more competitive and get your edge on and stuff, and like kind of put your skills into it, like you can play multiplayer. Like it's funny because like I play like one of the games I really enjoy playing is called War Thunder, and so that initially when that game first came out, it was primarily like a flight combat sim game, sort of. And so like a lot of the lessons that I've learned from like air combat in that game, I've kind of been able to like apply and give myself a pretty serious edge in Star Wars Squadrons too, which is kind of fun. But like
transferable game skills.
Yes. And so but yeah, it's just a super fun game. And but I almost had totally forgotten about this too, but it's kind of a cool like I don't know if they're trying to like directly connect this game to like Rogue Squadron, but I remember like one of the really cool games that I played back in the day on Nintendo 64 was Star Wars Rogue Squadrons. And so that was a really cool Star Wars like fighter. I think you play as Wedge in that game, I think. And so that was like a classic Star Wars game. And so it's kind of they do a good. I think you can get the skins for those squadrons for the respective ships. I could be wrong. I'm not totally sure, but it's just
Wow, that is cool. Actually, I didn't know about that.
I don't know. Like I'd have to look again. I might be wrong.
I wouldn't be surprised though if that was the case. I mean, of course, like Rogue Squadrons being such a legendary Star Wars game, vintage style. You know, the new movie that is going to be titled after that game, directed by Patty Jenkins, is also kind of an up and coming thing. Very much based around X-wing pilots and such. So yeah, I wonder if it makes me wonder if maybe some of these characters that we see in the story could potentially pop up later in perhaps one of these
that would
movies.
Be super cool. Yeah.
I mean, so much potential. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got, unless you have something else to bring up. But
I don't know. I think there was something else I was gonna say, but I don't remember now. I've forgotten. I'm drawing.
Oh, actually, I do have one thing I gotta bring up. I saw a video online of a guy who took his PlayStation controller and he I guess he's a carpenter, because he made this rig which houses the controller, and he made like two joystick things to manipulate the toggles on the controller, but like full size like flight sim. So yeah, so he like made his own flight simulator kind of
setup,
control
his own
setup.
flight sticks and throttles and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and other buttons to push the buttons on the thing, and yeah, it's cool. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so,
that's pretty fun.
Some people are really getting into it.
So I think what I was gonna say was just like a few criticisms that I do have for the game. So I mean, it's only like $40, which is not a bad price point for the content that they have. But the multiplayer does only have 2 modes, and so it's kind of too bad, because I would like to see them like do more with the multiplayer. Like I don't know how large of a player base that they have for their multiplayer, so it would kind of be, I mean, it's up to them, right? If they feel like that's worth the investment of doing like some sort of post content release or like DLC or something, or post release content, I should say.
It makes me wonder, because I mean, we've seen a couple updates come out recently, as well as the big one that dropped over December for Christmas, which was adding in that 5th ship for each faction. But yeah, I mean, you know, they're definitely putting a little more post-release support into the game.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to use the new ships, but I thought that was really great that they added them and stuff. Just adding that, like, one more thing for people to try and use and stuff.
Yeah, it brings some exclusivity content to the multiplayer modes as well. But I mean, yeah, I guess the best way to definitely play this game, just in retrospect, and this is something I recommend with Battlefront 2 as well to most people, play the campaign first. You know, beginning to end, just get through the campaign. You know, play through, learn how to use all the ships through that story.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, you also get the story mode and all that. I mean, it can be tempting just being able to buy the game and be like, okay, a bunch of friends already have it, they're jumping on multiplayer, but yeah, don't do it, man. Don't do it. You got to get through the story first. So
yeah, you're missing out. You're missing out on a lot, because like I was saying, the story does a fantastic job teaching you how to use all the ships. Like especially something like a support ship. Like I've very few times have I seen someone be able to successfully use that kind of ship in like a dogfight or a fleet battle or something like that. But you can do it. You just have to learn how.
This game is very challenging in the sense that if you do start playing it with a group of friends and everything, and you all get really into it, you can have a very successful group dynamic where somebody does play as the support ship and can operate, you know, very well, and like, you know, you gotta all kind of stay in sync, but like, yeah, it's like, I mean, flying in formation, everything, like, all that stuff can be done in this game. It just takes skill, right?
Yeah, like it's really funny because like even in games where I'm not playing with friends, because you're squadrons of like 5 people or whatever, right? And so even when I'm in a game where I'm not actually directly like talking with someone over Discord or whatever, or like in-game chat, like you can see what other classes of ship your teammates are playing as. And so typically like that's why I really enjoy playing like an A-wing or a TIE interceptor in the multiplayer like fleet battles, because like a lot of my teammates will be going with like Y-wings or TIE bombers, because they're focusing in on the objective and stuff like that, and they want to take down those capital ships and escorts. And so I'm like, oh, like perfect, you know what, they're going to focus on that stuff. I'm I like doing the like fighter to fighter combat, and that's what I'll excel in. So I'll do like I'll nuke the enemy team like all game in dogfights, and they'll be just like plowing through the enemy the enemy team, and you can go and back up your allies. I can't remember if there's a way to call for help and backup and stuff like that when you're getting pinned down.
Right.
But yeah, there's tons of fun to be had in the multiplayer.
Yeah. Well, man, that being said, I guess we covered this game pretty well. Well, dude, thanks for coming back on the show and talking Star Wars Squadrons. I guess we'll have you back again soon for something. But yeah, it's always great having you back.
Yeah, dude.
All right. Take care.
See you later.
All right, thanks again, Reid, for coming back on the show. And, plenty of video games to look forward to. Of course, we have an Indiana Jones game dropping from Bethesda at some point in the future. And there's rumors of a Knights of the Old Republic game coming as well, which is awesome. I mean, we got so much in store for Star Wars video games. And ever since the first kind of full-on canon campaign, which took place in Battlefront 2, it's been a nice ride, having these solid stories, wrapped up in Jedi Fallen Order and now Star Wars Squadrons and Tales from a Galaxy's Edge VR, Vader Immortal, episodes 1 through 3. We've had quite a few Star Wars canon video games come out, and this is just another one to add to that shelf of great stories in the video game kind of department. So big news on the podcast. I mean, we've got quite a few things coming your way. Some explained episodes on Darth Maul, like I mentioned earlier. We got the Star Wars Rebels Talk series, the after show, which follows up Clone Wars with our co-host Diego. Speaking of co-hosts, our co-host Blake, he's normally a guest on the show. He's actually decided to be a kind of a more full-time co-host. So you'll get a nice dynamic going forward with the episodes that normally I would have done myself in the past. He's going to be there now to add in a second voice to the mix, so you'll hear him a lot more frequently on the show. And that being said, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's all we got for today. Join the Discord, follow the Twitter feed at SW Escape Podcast, shoot us an email, shoot us a voicemail, drop a 5-star rating, please. That would help us out a lot. And send this show to a friend. May the Force be with you guys, and we'll see you next time here on Star Wars Escape Pod.
My life ain't got stress no more.